Hello, Bills Mafia. Happy Victory Monday one more time of the 2024 regular season, at least, as the Bills completely dominated the New York Jets yesterday at Highmark Stadium by a final score of 40-14. This is Kevin Syracuse with here for another edition of Cuse's Corner. And while that score was 40-14, it was really 40-0. And then the Jets, who were led by Tyrod Taylor. So, we'll take a brief moment to applaud Tyrod for ending the drought. But he led the Jets on a couple of drives. They got some garbage time touchdown points, and he made the score look a little bit better. But the Bills just utterly dominated that game, and they really embarrassed the Jets, the team who a lot of analysts were saying at the beginning of the year were supposed to win the AFC East this year, and the Bills just completely put the dagger in them. Now, the Jets season was already far from gone, but let's go back to week 6. That was a very good Monday Night Football game, and the Bills won 23-20. The Jets were 2-3 at the time, so if they won, they would have went to 3-3, but the Bills dropped them to 2-4, and that was really the beginning of the end for just an embarrassment of a product of a team that the Jets put out this season. And I don't get it, because on paper they did have a good team, but I guess it just comes back to Aaron Rodgers, as he is not as great of a quarterback as he used to be. He's not a great leader. We know how condescending he can be, but you know what? That's not our problem, because the Bills, the team that were doubted, just secured the number 2 seed in the AFC. They locked that up on Sunday, and now they have 13 wins on the season. They are 13-3, and it would be great to see them get one more win, go to 14-3 next week, but really, they don't have to, because there's nothing to really play for. You don't want to risk any injuries. And now we know the playoff scenarios, as we will get to later on this episode here. But I want to start with all the records that were just flowing from the Bills PR department on Sunday, because I have the notifications turned on. And it's like every single second, it seems like there's just a new record coming out, whether it's an NFL record, a team record, an individual record, just all these different accolades. And luckily, the Bills are able to condense it at the end of the game. And that's where I really like to start. So that being said, let's start right here. So first of all, Josh Allen tallied his 65th career rushing touchdown, tying Thurman Thomas for the most rushing touchdowns in team history. Allen also became the first player in NFL history with 5 consecutive 40-plus touchdown seasons. The next closest player is Drew Brees with 3. So just unprecedented numbers from Josh. And while I'm on Josh, I might as well say this right now. With yesterday's win, Josh Allen surpassed Russell Wilson for the most regular season wins by a quarterback in their first 7 NFL seasons with 76. Allen now has the most wins, total touchdowns with 262, and total yards with 30,595 by any player all time in their first 7 seasons. So again, just some of these numbers are absolutely mind-boggling, and more people are saying it, that he is the best player on the planet right now, and I would not disagree one bit. Moving down the list here, A.J. Epinesa sacked Aaron Rodgers for a safety. That marked the Bills' first safety since 2022 when Ed Oliver had it at Detroit. Epinesa now has 6 sacks on the season and has at least 6 over each of his last 3 seasons. So, good for A.J., because I feel like he quietly goes to work, does his job, doesn't have any huge numbers, but he is a very nice rotational piece. And I'm going to talk about the defense a lot here, because as much as it was another shiny game, another resume builder, I guess we could say, for Josh Allen, as he added to that MVP resume, we will talk about that as well. But I think that this game comes back to the defense, because they really set the tone. And again, we'll get into some more of those players and plays, but I was really impressed with what I saw from the Bills defense on Sunday. So going back to these shout-outs here, James Cook recorded his 15th rushing touchdown of the season, tying Josh Allen for the second most rushing touchdowns in a single season by a Bill. And those 15 rushing touchdowns are the most in the NFL this season. So moving over to the right-hand side here, the Bills finished 8-0 at home this season, marking the team's 3rd undefeated season at home and the first since 1990. So 34 years ago, the Bills finished 8-0 at home, and now they do it again. Buffalo also set new team records with 509 points scored. Their previous was 501 in 2020, the year where, Josh Allen really burst onto the scene and became an elite quarterback. But they set new team records with 509 points scored and 63 touchdowns scored. Moving down, Tyrell Shavers is the 13th Bill to catch a touchdown this season, which ties the all-time NFL record. Amari Cooper surpassed 10,000 career receiving yards. And then just some more defensive stats there for the Bills. Taron Johnson played in his 100th career game. And I do have one more stat here. Yesterday marked the first time since 1998 that the Bills defense had a defensive safety, recovered an opposing fumble, and had 2+ interceptions in a single game. So I think that's a good segue and a good starting point here to talk about the Bills defense, because I think they really set the tone Sunday against the Jets. Now, it was a great offensive game once again. As I said, Allen added to that MVP resume. And I mentioned how I would talk about this, so let's just get it out of the way right now. I'm so sick of the discourse between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, because people are saying, oh, well, look at the stats. Lamar has so many better stats than Josh. And it's like, you know what? If you were going based on stats, then Josh should have had the MVP last year. But this isn't an award that's based on who is the most valuable to their team. And Josh Allen is proving once again why he is the most valuable. Because last year, you could make a case that he had the stats and he was valuable. This year, while he doesn't have the stats, look what he's been working with and where people were projecting the Bills at the beginning of the season. And now he has them right at the top of the conference. And one other thing that I'll say is that he's played 100 less snaps than Lamar, because there have been probably 4 or 5 games where he's wearing his ball cap in the fourth quarter, if not more, but probably 4 games where he's sat in the majority of the fourth quarter. So he's had more than a game's worth of stats have been left out just because he's had his team in such a good position to win. That's the definition of an MVP right there. Now, going back to the defense, let's look at this stat right here. So I tweeted some stats after the game highlighting the performance of the Bills' defensive linemen, and starting right at the top here. So Ed Oliver finished with 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and 3 tackles for a loss, and that forced fumble was recovered by Matt Milano, setting the Bills up in great field position in that second half. A.J. Epinesa had a sack and a safety, as I already mentioned, and he had 2 tackles for a loss. Greg Rousseau, I thought he had 1 sack, but then they went back and credited Daquan Jones with the other half on that sack. So both players get a half sack, and now Rousseau ties his career high with 8 sacks this season. But Groot also had that key 4th down tackle early in the game. It was a 4th and 1 opportunity, and the Jets decided to go for it. They tried punching it up the gut with Braylon Allen, but Rousseau just had some great awareness and great burst just to shoot right past his blocker there and to stop Braylon Allen short of the 1st down. And that was really one of those game-changing plays, as I noted there. Speaking of which, Jordan Phillips with his interception, and then Von Miller with his first sack since week 10. So just great to see all of those players making those game-changing plays. And Ed Oliver talked about it after the game in the locker room. He was saying, confidence is a hell of a drug. That was a game that we needed, just one of those get-right games. I know it's just the Jets, and I think Oliver was trying to say that too. And he was like, no offense to any of our opponents, but you have to have a game like that when everyone can just join in on the fun and get in on the action, because this is a unit that's been under a lot of scrutiny as of late, because they have given up more than 375 total yards of offense to each of their last 3 opponents, going back to a few weeks ago in Los Angeles. And then they go to Detroit and give up 521 yards of total offense. And not to mention that both of those games, the Bills defense allowed more than 40 points total. And then they come back home and take on the Patriots. And yes, they won. And yes, they only gave up 21 points. But it came down to the wire, and the Bills did allow 379 total yards of offense for the Patriots. And this was a team who at the time had the 30th ranked offense. They were 32nd in passing and 31st in scoring. So a lot of people were saying, man, this defense is really not cut out for the playoffs here, and Josh Allen's just going to have to go on a heater. And I'm not ready to say that yet, but we have seen the defense crumble in the past over the past few years in the playoffs. So I know it was just the Jets, but this is that get-right type of game that the Bills needed. Do want to mention Christian Benford with that huge interception as well. So now it's going to get really interesting. Week 18 here, the Bills really have nothing to play for. They can rest their starters. They already have the 2 seed locked up. But check out these playoff scenarios now. So 1 playoff spot left. Here's the deal. Broncos beat the Chiefs. They're in. Broncos lose and the Dolphins beat the Jets, Miami's in. Broncos and Dolphins lose, Bengals beat the Steelers, and Cincinnati is now in. All three lose, and the Broncos are in. So that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be Buffalo either hosting Denver, Cincinnati, or Miami. Off the top of my head, I think I want to play Denver, but it does sound kind of juicy to take down Miami again. But it's hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season. But we know that Buffalo has had their way with the Dolphins. Either way, you just got to play your game. You can't worry about who your opponent is because to be the best, you got to beat the best. And the Bills have Josh Allen. And I think that's a very good spot to leave off for this edition of Cuse's Corner. So the Bills get it done once again. And now we just wait and see what the seeding has to offer next week and then moving into the playoffs.